Hello and welcome to What the Hey, where I'm your regular host of What the Hey, and today on What the Hey, I'm once again answering yet another question. Now, when I go to my notebook of knowledge, I see the question of, how the hey are babies made? Now, this question was asked by Hoozy, so hello to you, and thank you very much for the question. Now, in terms of a very basic description, depending on the species that we're discussing, the whole overall process may be different, but the general and kind of universal rules apply. There's not a specific species listed in this question, so I'm going to kind of go into that, but majority of it is the same. The general process for pretty much any species would be the combination of genetic material and then the long process of waiting for a baby to be born, which is kind of what I'll go into like at the end, but it's crazy. So for this section of the video, I'm going to kind of list the different ways that babies are made. I'm going to first go into like the human aspect of it and then kind of go into the animal aspect because there's a little bit of a difference there, but I'm going to go into the different ways that it can happen. Now, I have these listed on a whiteboard, but the most notable and usually the basic route that a lot of people take to have a child would be sexual intercourse. Now, there's a lot of different names to reference sexual intercourse, one of the main ones being conception. But with the option of sexual intercourse, that usually just has to do with the male and female reproductive organs for humans. And I'll explain it at the very end, but with sexual intercourse, the main thing is just exchanging genetic material from a man into a woman, and then it's combined, and I'll explain more of it later, but it's all crazy and very complex. So the main one a lot of people would know about would be sexual intercourse, but the other ones that I have listed all kind of have to do with like exchanging genetic material from someone, usually outside of a relationship, to help a couple have a child. And there are multiple normal occasions of couples not being able to have children, whether that's reproductive issues or it's a same-sex couple, so it really just depends on what you're going for. But there are other options like artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, cytoplasmic transfer, and nuclear transfer or cloning. And a lot of those processes usually just revolve around some sort of donor, whether that's a man or a woman, who provides their sperm or egg so that a baby can grow. And the donors for genetic material, whether that be an egg or a sperm, can come from various organizations that specialize in donors. And it's very interesting because there are people who literally take their time to go to donor organizations to provide an egg or a sperm so people can have a child. And it's really cool because they have to go through all the screening, health history forms, and they have to literally go to the organization to spend their time and do everything. So it's really crazy and cool. So for the human side of things, there are definitely a lot of options for people to go through, whether or not you can have a child naturally or you can. There's just a lot of different options and they're all very cool to do research in. And for the other side of things, because the question necessarily wasn't specific, for animals, it's pretty much the same thing. The most common way is just natural. There are also animals that go through asexual reproduction, which for the biggest example that comes to my mind could be like starfishes or something, where they'll literally like parts of their body will come off and then it's like a new baby. Yay! But going back to the human side of things, the process of a baby being born and just growing inside the womb takes forever. It's usually common knowledge, but for the most part, babies take about 9 months to develop, which is around 39 to 42 weeks. I don't know which one sounds longer, but then when I was like, bruh, that's 42 weeks, that's a long time. And then the amount of time that it usually takes for a baby to be delivered can range from a few hours to a few days. Which I guess it kind of depends on what you want to label as a child being delivered, because a woman has to go through a whole process of like expanding and actually being prepared. And there's like, you get fake signs that you're going to deliver a baby, so you're all confused. And you go to the doctor and you're like, bruh, I think I'm going to have a baby. But then they're like, nah, you're not ready. And you have to suffer for multiple hours. It's great. Bruh, it really do be the miracle of childbirth, I swear. So for this very last section of the video, I'm going to be doing a very brief and simplistic version of how babies are made. It mainly just deals with like the sperm and the egg, because that's just like how conception is in general inside the body. Now this is kind of skipping a few steps, but the main part is that a mature egg inside a woman's body around the period of ovulation, which is kind of also referred to as the menstrual cycle, meets up with a sperm in the uterus. I will say there are a bunch of complications with this because when the sperm enters the woman's body, it can go in all sorts of directions and there's lots of them, so it's like a race to the finish, bruh. And even sometimes the egg inside a woman's body can end up in the wrong place, and that definitely creates complications for birthing and just living in general. But for the most part, the egg and the sperm meets up in the uterus. And then the main way that a baby actually starts to form is the fact that a sperm has to penetrate the external layer of an egg, which is crazy because it's just like one sperm and they have to beat everyone else to get there. So you won. But I mean, that section right there is kind of the big start to it, and I feel like kind of what defines how a baby is made, because the exchange of genetic material kind of determines a lot of things about a baby, so that's like the very basic start. Bruh, I don't know. If you ever don't feel good about yourself, just know that you won in the race to become born, bruh. I don't know, the whole process is extremely intricate and super cool and super impressive, so if you'd like to learn more about it in general, whether that's through visuals or just reading, I always include links to the information that I get this stuff from, so feel free to look in the description because it's all going to be there. I don't know, I just think all this stuff is really cool because it's very intricate, it's very impressive, and it's something that's literally relevant to anyone who's been born. But that's essentially the answer to the question, so if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll get to answering them as soon as I can. Additionally, there is a Wix website that I've recently released, so if you've already asked a question, feel free to check it out to see where your question might be. But that's essentially it, so thank you very much for watching. Bye.